Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm next. South Africa's taxi industry, worth over 100 billion rand, moving millions of people across South Africa daily, pays virtually no tax, no VAT, no pay, no compliance. Yet the government continues to squeeze the formal sector, the formal businesses, red tape and new regulations almost every second day. Yet the informal taxi empire operates with 100% total impunity. They go so far as to actually destroy or hinder their competition, and their competition being part of the formal industry. It's ironic because the South African National Taxi Council, SANTO, themselves said the quiet part out loud. At first, dismissing claims that the minibus taxi industry does not pay tax, shortly followed by the statement, as such, currently a large part of the taxi industry does not participate in the greater company's tax regime, he said. Let's take a quick look at the recent Business Tech article, which highlighted that this 100 billion rand sector operates virtually tax-free and unregulated since 1989. The Business Tech article starts by saying South Africa's taxi industry, which generated an estimate 90 billion to 100 billion in annual revenue, is paying virtually no tax. Divanatha from OTA said formalizing the taxi industry, which is currently not within the tax base, would broaden South Africa's tax base. You do not hear any ANC or SARS representative talking about the taxi industry. The article goes on to say the Minister of Finance has revealed that only approximately 5 million rand in tax is collected from the entire taxi industry. See, the thing is that the majority of taxis operate with cash. So there is little financial documentation about the operations. This Rebecca lady from Santo, super cheeky. The Star newspaper that claims of tax evasion ignore how the taxi sector is structured and taxed. That is the very essence of this problem, Rebecca, is that the taxi sector is structured incorrectly and taxed incorrectly. So it's not a misunderstanding, it's a statement. Rebecca says these individuals are issued tax clearance certificates by SARS, which they use for numerous reasons, including in their application and their renewals of the operating licenses. The actual fact that you can go to Home Affairs and buy yourself a passport or an ID book, I'm pretty sure in this unregulated industry linked to huge crime cartels, which are now being named in the Madlanga Commission, I'm not going to say that they follow the law in terms of their application and renewals of the operating licenses. They just state the fact, yes, that is the law. Whether or not it's done legally, what we're questioning here, Rebecca, here's the really shocking part. She admitted that South Africa's current tax framework does not fully accommodate the informal nature of the minibus taxi industry. It's as if she's saying, we're here and you need to accommodate us. That's the problem with your unregulated industry. You need to change your industry to accommodate the rules, the laws. Currently, a large part of the taxi industry does not participate in the greater company's tax regime. How's this statement for main character syndrome? If you've ever heard of a main character syndrome statement, the current structure of the tax reform needs to be re-examined to ensure a speedy resolution of this taxation loophole. No, the current structure of the taxi industry needs to be re-examined to ensure a speedy resolution. The taxi industry controls the entire South Africa. So bad that they think they can say, okay, cool, we'll do a tax reform, but you need to accommodate us. You must do what we say. Which is kind of how they operate anyway. So the attitude continues. Articles from Business Tech and Biz News remind us that the minibus taxi sector is the lifeblood of South Africa. Yes, but like most, if not all, informal sectors in South Africa, it's a cash-only economy, almost entirely unbanked and unregulated. The taxi industry pays 5 million rand in tax, the vast majority of taxi owners declaring no corporate income tax at all and not paying payroll tax. And it gets even more lucrative when you look at the entire informal sector. An independent biannual survey shows that there are over 3 million small to medium enterprise owners. They employ 13 million workers, and the majority of them actually fall outside the realm of Stats SA. This informal sector, most of it unregulated, has a combined turnover 2.5 trillion rand. So let's quickly take a look at the Bloomberg article. There's one or two points worth noting. In the first 3 months of 2025, gun battles between rival taxi organizations, private entities that run the routes, saw 60 drivers and commuters killed in fights over who holds monopolies on the city lines. 60. And on top of that, the amount of ANC people who get killed in municipalities is actually quite frightening. They're literally just killing each other off. The greed is consuming the taxi and ANC. On the bright side, some good news for a change. User clicks for Prasa rose to 39 million, and that was for 1 year. While that's an improvement from the meager 10 million in the fiscal year 2021, it's a far cry from the peak of 646 million in 2009. And here's a lovely graph just to highlight the absolute drop. And it's taken 15 years to even begin to see an upward trend. The Bloomberg article states that minibus taxi dominance of public transport is a consequence of apartheid. That's fabulous, but as I like to now reinforce, is that we need to change this narrative. What's happened is that for 30 years, the ANC have not at all tried to regulate or integrate the taxi industry into the formal economy, the net of profitability, because they're profiting from it, because the taxi industry is the crime cartel. So it isn't a consequence of apartheid, and even if it was a consequence of apartheid, the consequence of ANC inaction and incompetence has shown no improvement in this industry over 30 years. So sure, apartheid created the situation, but for sure, the ANC have done bugger all to change it, to better it, to regulate it, losing out on billions of rands of tax. The article goes on to say that Johannesburg has spent billions of rands on a largely stalled attempt, aka a total waste of our money, to build out an efficient bus network with standardized fares. How's that going, ANC? 15 years later, oh look, here's the answer, never mind. And the Cloudway cost 45 billion rand, hasn't yet expanded. Rio Vaya, meanwhile, entered business rescue, a local form of bankruptcy protection in 2023 for failing to pay its creditors, facing bus shortages, and year-long delays in rolling out new routes. Thank you for wasting all of my money with absolutely no return on investment. And here's a crazy fact. In May, Johannesburg forfeited 258 million rand allocated to it by Treasury to improve Rio Vaya because the city failed to meet the grant's conditions. Perhaps too busy fixing the city for G20? You can only have one thing at a time from the ANC. Multitasking is not part of the ANC's vocabulary. And them going to say that they want unwanted competition. Violence follows, Because Anna Bungani did an investigation and have been doing an investigation over numerous years about the escalated attacks on buses and their operators in the Eastern Cape. Taxi associations fighting for the control of routes, intimidation and extortion, law enforcement not responding, not getting involved. And not because of lack of evidence, by the way, because there is a profit to be made from it, or they're actually fearful of the backlash. So while the ANC continue to tighten their grip on the formal economy, the largest players in the market operate above the law, politically untouchable, financially invisible. Fear replacing policy and cash replacing accountability. This sector, which has operated with no intervention from the ANC for over 30 years, hides behind the veil of the perils of the black life in a racially unequal society. That narrative needs to stop. That card expired. And here's why. Honestly, I didn't even read this entire article because it's not about whether the article is right or wrong. It's about this one statement. This comes from The Conversation. Academic rigor, journalistic flair. Flair is the right word. Race is no longer part of the issue in terms of the unequal society. And here's why. The majority of the ANC rule has seen the economy shrink. In complete contrast, the black population has skyrocketed. Meanwhile, the white population, the Indian population, and even so much as the colored population has maintained status quo, if not actually declining. That is why there is such an unequal society, is because the ANC have not created and expanded the economy, which would then allow this unequal society to step into the space and build wealth, contribute to the economy. It is the economic growth as a problem when it comes to an unequal society. The lack of economic growth is a consequence of the ANC, which means there is no economy for the unequal to take part in. That is the problem. It's racially what? What a terrible, lazy argument. South Africa's hidden taxi industry tells a story. It shows that a state wants to regulate anything that'll throw them up, that'll make them look as incompetent as they are. Yet it continues to ignore an industry which it actually profits off, that pose exactly the same standards that the ANC operate in. Lawless, abusive, and radicalized. So, essentially, until policymakers, the government, confront this imbalance, the tax-paying base is going to continue shrinking, and the informal sector is going to continue growing, while it continues to be unregulated and dangerous, making little to no contribution to the financing of our country. So what do you guys think? Drop me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. I mean, do you agree that SARS should actually start working with the government, pivot their focus, and give us little tax-paying citizens just a little bit of a break? I mean, the innovative methods that SARS comes up with to just kind of break us one more time. Let's see how further back these people can bend to just look at the sector and actually make it work. And then do you actually think that the taxi industry is ever going to be regulated? I don't have much hopes. I mean, the ANC is still busy with transformation. So who knows when we'll get around to taxi regulation. What's absolutely crazy. Anyway, let me not digress. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and a share. Support me by hitting that subscribe button. It really does give my channel a boost, puts it in front of new audiences, and then I convince them to subscribe. Shout out to Nikki and Paul. Just want to say thank you for your support. It means the world to me. Yes, let's look forward to this interesting week. Maybe we can have some summer weather for a change in Joburg. I hope you guys have a fabulous week. Be the most amazing human that you can be. Over and out.